Thank you for being patient, Paul.
No problem.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. My name is Mark Ross, and with me this evening is Mr. Paul Booth. Paul Booth, he is a therapist, author of the book Ethos, Pathos, and Alcohol, and I'm happy to have him on the show. So, Paul, thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Before we talk about your memoir and everything about that pertains to it, first question I have for you is just to give us a background story about you. Tell us about how Paul got to where he is right now.
Well, okay. Well, it's been quite an adventure. I was born in Hollywood. That pretty much tells half the story right there. Born and raised in Hollywood in the late 60s, early 70s is when I was a teenager.
Okay.
So I grew up in a family that seemed fairly normal to start off. When I was about 7, my mother started drinking, and by 12, she was a full-blown alcoholic. I was taken out of the home, put into a place called McLaren Hall for protective custody. And when I got out, my mother committed suicide and went to live with my father. I felt lonely and estranged because I had been taking care of my mother. So my father happened to own back then it was like a soda fountain and a sundries and a liquor store. They don't have them around anymore, at least not out here. But it was a great place for the neighborhood on the corner for people to come in and to talk and to have, ice cream sodas and things like that. But he also sold liquor. And I stole a bottle of Cutty Sark, mainly because it had a sailboat on the label.
Yeah. What was it called?
Cutty Sark. It's
Cuddy
Scotch.
Stark. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Imagine what Scotch tastes like to a 12-year-old boy. It's terrible.
Yikes. Yes.
That was the reason I chose it. At night, I would drink it to go to sleep, and because that's the only thing I knew for coping. That's what I had learned from my mother was she drank, and I felt estranged from my father, and I was lonely, and that was the beginning of my drinking career. I drank for the next 17 years. It got severely worse. I ended up in the streets. And from there, living in the streets, had a lot of experiences ending in a spiritual experience, basically, and got me into a recovery home. And from there, I started putting my life back together. I've been sober 41 years now and had a reasonably successful life.
Nice, nice, nice. Now you said your dad was estranged. Did you ever had a chance to reach out to your father at any point?
No, he died when I was 20. And he was a good man, a generous man, but he was not an affectionate, warm man. He didn't know much about being a father. He loved us very much. You could tell by the things that he did,
Sure.
but he didn't know how to be close to us. So that was the reason that I had interpreted that was that he was angry at me, because what I skipped over was when we got out of this place called McLaren Hall. Back then it was different. They put me on the stand at 12 years old and they asked me who I thought we should live with. And there was 4 of us. I was the oldest of 4 siblings. My mother and my father. Now my parents were taken out of the room at the time, but my mother was in the grips of her addiction. And for some reason, she promised once again that she was going to stop. And my sister was still in a crib. So I chose my mother just because my sister was in a crib. That was my whole basis of making that decision. And it was a bad decision and it proved wrong very quickly. And because I made that decision, I presumed in my mind, I made it up that my father didn't like me. I don't believe that was true today. I believe that that was just the way that I dealt with it. And when I had to go to live with him after her suicide, we didn't talk. We didn't talk about anything really, not just about her, but just things in general. He worked and he was kind, but we didn't talk about anything of depth.
And he didn't bring anything up?
No, in fact, I write about this in my book. We got a phone call in the middle of the night that my mother had died. He got up, he got to the phone before I did. Back then we had one phone in the house. You had the long cord and everybody talked. It was like a
Yeah.
wall phone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you couldn't
Yeah.
talk on the phone too long. Well, he got
Yeah.
to the phone first. Not that I was in a hurry. And he just said a couple of words of thank you, and hung up. And then he looked at me and he said, "Your mother's dead. Go back to bed." Uh,
What?
yeah. I went back to bed. We never talked about it. Uh,
What?
yeah, I kept waiting for him to come in and talk to me. It never happened. So
That's how the conversation went.
that, yeah, if you can call that a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, holy crap.
So,
So wow. So your dad was pretty cold.
uh, I'm not sure cold is the word. No, he just didn't have the words.
Apathy.
Yeah.
You know
Well,
what I'm saying? He don't sound like he didn't care.
I think he cared. He just didn't know how to say it. So he didn't say it. It's kind of hard to explain. If I thought about it more, I could probably nail it down. That's a good question. I'll have to think about how to
Yeah.
phrase that in the future
Yeah.
because I never felt that he didn't care. I always felt he cared a lot. He felt that he just didn't know how to express it.
Mm.
So
Mm. Okay. Okay. Okay.
everybody loved him, not me. It's people he loved to work in his corner store, even though he had a lot of other businesses, but all his friends, they all liked him. They all liked to talk to him. And they could talk about superficial things, but not about things that were deep. And
Mm.
probably at that time, what he had been through in the divorce, it went on for a long time with the divorce and the child custody. He was probably worn out by this time. He was diabetic. He lost a lot of money in the court battles, and I think he cared a lot about my mother, but he was pretty much a worn out man by then. So
Mm. Mm.
it's a sad
Okay.
story for him, actually.
Yeah, that's messed up, man. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that. And which leads me to ask, that you dealt with a lot of it seems that you dealt with a lot of hopelessness. And so I want to ask, what went through your mind during that time that your mom passed and, living with your dad that didn't know how to show you that attention and affection that you wanted?
The two things that stand out were one, I blamed myself for my mother's death because it's when I left, I felt I was her caretaker, and she killed herself right after I left. So I blame myself for that. And with my father, like I said, I felt that I believed he didn't like me because of what happened in court. So my feelings were basically one of isolation and nobody to talk to.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's it, huh?
That was it. And that's the way I lived a good part of my life. There was a lot of loneliness in my life.
Mm, mm,
I,
mm.
I used to go up to the observatory and drink at night and look at the city and just drink by myself and just kind of, think about things.
Yeah, yeah.
Spent a lot
And
of time drinking by myself.
right, right, right. And I was going to ask, did that create that spiral for you? And I know this is off the beaten path a little bit, but did that create that spiral downward for you to get into, more types of drugs or,
Yeah.
bad behavior? You know what I mean? What, how did that transpire?
Well, one thing I said, I drank because I was lonely. Alcohol is not a cure for loneliness. It only facilitates the loneliness.
Mm,
And
mm,
what happens is that, yes, I did start doing other drugs and everything else, but I think I just didn't care at that point. I don't think I cared about myself. I didn't see a future. And yeah, so the people I hung around with, the only people that I felt close to were other guys that were in were in a similar situation as me. So a lot of people like me and a group of us together were definitely a bad mix. We just encouraged each other to do bad things.
mm, mm.
I've written several stories about them and personal essays about things that have happened with the group of guys that I was in and with.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Uh, and so you go down this spiral.
Yeah.
And at what point did you say enough is enough? and you wanted to make changes and get yourself right?
Well, actually, there's more than one time. The first time I was 18, I tried to stop. But I
Mm,
think basically all I was trying to do was to get my girlfriend to stop yelling at me about my drinking. And then the next time, after my father died, there was a bad situation, and I did try to stop seriously. I went to Alcoholics Anonymous for about 5.5 months. Um, but I had no coping skills, and I was still lonely. And
mm,
I ended up slowly not understanding what I was doing, going back into drinking through the path of using different types of things to calm my nerves. And then pretty soon I just ended up drinking. And that went again for 32 years. And when I was in the streets, then there was no way, no other path away from it. You know, I don't want to talk about the whole book, but the book itself is written because you're asking these questions in what we call a braided memoir. And it's the age of around 12, around that era when I had these things happening in the worst part of my childhood. And then at the age of 32, when I was in the streets, and the chapters go back and forth, kind of saying, this is what it was like, and this is possibly the result. This is what happened, and this is what the result was. So it kind of gives you a picture of how they tied together the trauma and the result in the drinking and the using
mm,
until eventually it got so bad that I started to seek help in the church. Um, and I basically went there for food. I worked around the church, sweeping the floors, typing up the bulletin. Back then you type it, and I did have some office skills from working one of my father's businesses.
mm,
So he would pay me in food. And then one Sunday, out of obligation, I started going to church on Sunday. And one Sunday, I had a bright light experience that happened. It kind of changed my life. I didn't stop drinking instantly, but something had changed, and I knew that. And he agreed, he asked me if I would get baptized, and I did. Not just more at that time as to please him, something he wanted me to do, so I did it. But because of that white light experience, things slowly began to change. And within a few weeks, I ended up in a recovery home. That then it was enough. It did change my life enough where I got to the right place, and he encouraged me to get into this recovery home. And that place saved my life. It was a low bottom recovery home, $40 a month, room and board. Right? Imagine that. It's no
40
Malibu
bucks.
place. Yeah, no Malibu place for $100,000 a weekend.
Wow.
But I love that place. To this day, it saved my life.
Nice. Um, how did your childhood trauma affect you as an adult?
Uh, I would say most people that come into recovery from any almost any addiction has some trauma in their background.
Hmm.
And how it affects you is that it affects the relationships you have with people.
Hmm.
I still deal with the lack of coping mechanisms. I had to learn how to cope. It
Hmm.
makes your recovery a little, that's why people just don't stop drinking and they're okay. They
Hmm.
stop drinking and now they have to deal with the consequences of these traumas that have happened. Some of those traumas happened when they were in childhood. Many of those traumas happened as a result of when they were drinking and using.
Hmm.
And those things catch up with them and they affect the mind and the behavior. And
Hmm.
those things have to change and they take time. It's one of the reasons you need people to surround your people with people that can help you. They know what you're going through, they accept you, and they tell you, how to do this differently.
Yeah, yeah. And my next question is related to recovery. Uh, and many people that go through recovery, they relapse during their initial attempts at sobriety, as you uh, noted. But do you think that they feel that they have uh, and this is for some people, I would imagine, do you think that they have they stop because they have the willpower, they think they have the willpower to do it alone, or are they in denial that there's something controlling them?
That is actually a multifaceted question. Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Um, First of all, they don't call everything a relapse. I've worked in the field of addiction for 35 years or something besides my own recovery. I'm a state nationally certified addiction therapist. Um, Many people come in and stop drinking because of outside pressures and different reasons that they have to, but they don't really want to stop drinking. And if they haven't gotten into recovery, it's not really, they may stop drinking, but it's not recovery yet. So some people, we call it a prelapse or whatever, but it's almost like um, they're not quite ready. Almost everybody has tried to stop drinking on their own before they finally, they find the way to do it, which usually involves other people. I've certainly tried it many times. I'm just not going to drink that much this weekend, or I'm going to cut back. Most of us go through that, a whole list of things. We try it. The denial goes on throughout our entire life on different areas of it. But is it denial because they relapsed? No, they just don't know. Sometimes learning to recovery is, if you can use, the analogy or the metaphor of riding a bike. You just don't hop on it and ride it. You try to ride it and you keep crashing it. They don't know how to live sober yet.
Mm,
So the ones that really do want to stay sober, they want to stay sober, but they don't know how to do it yet and they make mistakes. They still think they can go to places where people drink and use. That's where all their friends are. They don't want to stop drinking and be lonely. They don't understand being around alcohol triggers things in them that causes the body itself and the mind to
mm,
crave alcohol. They don't realize that happens.
mm,
All right. Um, Other people, they really want to stop drinking, but they don't have the coping mechanisms, all the stress that starts to come up when you come into recovery. All right. It's a very stressful situation. And, you stop drinking, you basically have to change your lifestyle. And people, you ask themselves, well, what do I do now?
yeah,
They
yeah,
don't know what to do.
yeah. And
So
I could see how that would be scary.
it's terrifying for many people. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm, mm, mm,
And
mm,
some don't have the support. Imagine you married somebody that, you and your spouse went to wineries all the time, did wine tasting and all that. All of a
mm,
sudden you have a problem, not all of a sudden, but you have a problem and you stop drinking. She's used to this person, this party guy that goes to wineries and parties with her. She is not ready for him to change and she may sabotage it herself. All right.
mm.
Or vice versa. There's lots of different reasons that people resort back to drinking. There's not just one cause. Um, and again, I go back, I don't think it's because they don't want to stay sober. They just don't know what's involved yet. And is the denial, I'll tell you this. We call a thing called denial and delusion. The denial is basically, I know the truth, but I don't want to change. All right. Or I don't want to accept the truth.
Oh, say that again.
Denial is like, I know what the truth is, but I don't want to accept the truth yet.
Oh,
That's denial.
got it.
Delusion, which goes right along with it in recovery, is, well, okay, I grew up in a family where everybody drinks. Everybody drinks the way I do. All my friends drink like I do.
Mm,
So I'm perfectly normal. Now
mm,
we know that's not normal because they've surrounded themselves with people that are just as bad. So that's delusional. That's not normal compared to the rest of the world, but that's in their world, that's normal. So we call that delusion. So they try to stop drinking, they think they're abnormal, So it's a combination of two things, basically, denial and delusion.
okay. Understood. Understood. So let's talk about your book, Ethos, Pathos, and Alcohol. What's the story behind it? What made you write it?
Well, it started with, once again, loneliness. When I had a knee replacement, and right after I had the knee replacement, COVID hit. And there I was stuck. I couldn't get into physical therapy. So I tried to do as much exercise as I could myself. And one of the things I did was I started trying to ride a bike. And I drove the bike fine, but then I got off the trails. We live up on the border of the national forest here. and I started writing dirt trails with the new knee recovery, which wasn't all bright in itself. And I ended up having an accident that caused a lot of problems. You know, I crashed the bike and I made everything more complicated. So I was stuck at home for a long period of time. And just for something to do, I had to get these feelings out. I started writing. And as I wrote these short stories about things that were bothering me, things that I'd been thinking about for a long time, um, one day I realized I had a whole lot of stories, and they just seemed to come together into a book. And
Mm,
I'd been taking classes all along. This is I had nowhere to go. It was COVID, so I was doing everything at home. I was writing and I was taking classes. One day I said, "So you ought to make a book out of that." And I look at it and I said, "Yeah, but there's enough here."
wow.
And it made sense. I had enough stories that were sequential enough to make an interesting story.
Mm, okay.
And I
Okay.
got it out too. I got out a lot of feelings inside. And I'll tell you what, I had a lot of like ill feelings about my mother when I started this book. And
Mm.
I had a sense of total forgiveness when I finished it. So journaling, writing can have real transformational experiences in your life. And I found that out for myself. A lot of things changed for me as a result of that writing.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. Because I would imagine so because you're writing your emotions out on paper
Yes. Yeah.
and you can go back and look at it whenever you want and you know, yeah. I could see how that works.
It
You know,
also opens the door when you write it. You start seeing more and more things. You started
mm,
writing down more things come back.
mm,
In parts, we remember trauma. Trauma happens and time gets frozen. All right. And we remember that frozen experience. When I started writing about it, it became unfrozen, and the things that were also involved started becoming more clear. It's like all of a sudden it became a living picture all of a sudden. It wasn't just some frozen picture that I'd been hanging on to all my life. I don't know if that explains it very well, but that just came to mind. So,
oh yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. Wow. Um, oh, I forgot to ask you. I meant to ask you.
mhm.
Um, now you are a therapist as well.
Yeah,
Um, you mentioned this to me in our initial conversation about how you got yourself together and went back to college.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you got straight A's across the board.
Yes, I did.
Share that story right quick. Share that story. I'd like to hear that again.
Well, it's interesting. I was usually a pretty good student. I would say usually I was a pretty good student, but when my earlier life in high school, I went to many schools growing up because of my mother's drinking for one, we were having to move a lot. So, as a result of that, my grades suffered. And also, I think it got to a point where I didn't care anymore the way that our family was going. And so I would get straight fails. But then I might go to a new school and go stay with my aunt for a while, and I'd have straight A's as long as I was away from all the craziness. But even through my drinking and using, I tended to have I tend to have some class going. I just had always had a desire to learn. So I was attending the junior colleges, and because it didn't cost anything back then to go, other than to buy your book. Uh, of course, when I ended up in the streets, I wasn't going to school. So when I got sober, um, I first became a therapist, a counselor, an addictions counselor, and had to take classes to do that. And I worked in that several years. I worked at a couple major treatment centers, and then I saw the way it was going with insurance that you were going to have some kind of license if you were going to stay in the field. In California, alcohol and drug counselors are not licensed. It's more of a certification. They may be making it a license now, but it wasn't at the time. So I had to go back to school. I got a master's degree in counseling psychology, and I did get straight A's. In fact, I ended up on the honor roll, So um, I just applied myself.
Yeah.
I have to say I worked hard in recovery. I worked full time. I went to school full time. So the one thing my father did give me was a work ethic. But I always joke his career advice was get a job. You know,
Yeah. Well,
what's
yeah,
I do in my life, Dad? Get a
yeah,
job.
yeah. Get a job. Right. You finish school? Yes, Dad. All right, get a job.
Oh, he would have preferred I worked and go to school. It was my mother that always encouraged me to stay in school. But
Okay, okay, okay. Now, as a therapist, Paul, uh, what are some important things about recovery that you share with your clients?
when it's time, I share my own story. But most of all, I listen to what's going on with them, and really help them feel safe enough to talk about what really is happening in their life and how they would like to see it change. And most of them will come in, well, I'd like to be able to control it and not get in trouble when I drink. I go, yeah, I understand that. I think most of us would. And some of them have to try it. So we might lay out a plan. They might have to fail a couple of times before they're willing to do what they're supposed to do.
Mhm.
Others have been through it already and they're ready to change. So we figure out what kind of plans are really going to be helpful. And I support them in the positive moves that they make. And when they don't make the positive move, then I say, I don't condemn them. I say, okay, so this didn't work. How can we do this differently? And the main thing is to keep encouraging them that people make it all the time. All right. And because you don't pop into recovery, one day and you're in recovery for the rest of your life and everything goes fine, that hardly ever happens for anybody. So
Mhm.
they're not failures. They're not even really setbacks. They're learning experiences, just
Mhm.
like falling off a bike. All
Mhm.
right. You fall off a bike when you're learning how to ride. Is that a failure? No.
Oh,
The failure is not getting back on it.
exactly. Exactly. All right. Uh, Paul, you have any future plans for yourself now that you got your book out? You have anything else going on with yourself in the future?
I'm writing the second book right now. And I am writing also personal essays that I submit to recovery magazines. And I still work. I run groups for the state bar here, and I have a couple clients, but I do everything on Zoom now. I've gotten into the age where I'm not into driving into an office full time.
Mhm.
So that's probably my main plan is I really enjoy the writing now and trying to promote the book and writing the short stories. That's probably the best way for me that I feel that I get across to people. In fact, I'm doing a speaking event in the little town we're in where I'm reading one of the stories that I wrote. And I
Awesome.
enjoy that type of thing.
Awesome. Awesome.
And maybe become a storyteller one day, just a storyteller.
I could see that. You got that peaceful, calm demeanor where you can just share good stories with, and you got good energy, Paul. uh, if you had a motivational message that you could share to those out there struggling with addiction, what would that message be, Paul?
I've thought about that question, and everybody's different, but if I had to have one general message, is that basically an addiction is not a fault. We really do look at it as, as an illness, and anybody can get ill. This can happen to anybody, but also anybody can recover too. So the thing is that you have to change your life, but we only do it one day at a time.
Mm,
And what are you going to do just today? Just take one day and do your best. It's very difficult. We are so good at just projecting into the future and and the fears and everything else and all the things that are going to happen. And even myself, I have to remind myself all the time, just do what you can do today. We can
mm,
do that.
hmm.
So what's the motivation? Just don't drink today. And if you feel like you're going to drink, we'll call somebody and we'll all get you through it today until tomorrow. And
Yeah,
if we have to do it again tomorrow, we'll do it again tomorrow.
yeah. One day at a time.
And find a purpose. And usually that purpose is about helping somebody else. That's usually, and no matter what that means to you, find a purpose.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Just like you're doing with your show.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate that. How can people contact you for more information, Paul?
Well, my email is write, W-R-I-T-E, at paulbooth.net. Okay. I also have a website called paulboothstories.com, and all the information is on there. Phone numbers, addresses, all that stuff. It's in the book also. The book's on Amazon, Ethos, Pathos, and Alcohol. Read the reviews. So that's it. I've gotten great reviews.
All right. All right. Well, that's all the questions I have for you, sir. Mr.
Wonderful.
Paul Booth. Paul Booth, I really appreciate you taking this time out to share your story with me and share your wealth of knowledge, because you did drop some gems, as they say.
Thank you for asking me to be on, Mark. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you, and I wish nothing but success for your future endeavors, and as well as your memoir that you already have out. Do you have a copy of it that you can show, or you just there you go. Ethos, Pathos, and Alcohol. I have it at home, and so far so good.
Okay. Hope you enjoy it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Paul Booth again, thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. As I often say, and will continue to say, it's okay to not be okay. Just do something about it.
Okay.
Paul, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you guys have a good evening. Paul, you have a good evening as well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye now.